Running out money, anything, ayy. Ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Ayy, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Revanova, the official TMS provider for the Freight Coach. You guys, I've been a broker for a long time, and the tools that are at your disposal with Revanova help you eliminate bouncing between systems, which improves your accuracy when you are managing multiple tasks throughout your workday. Plus, it's built into the Salesforce cloud, so your CRM is fully integrated with your TMS, eliminating yet another silo. In today's day and age, you are definitely concerned about the safety of your data. With Revanova, it's fully protected. They have cutting-edge security that keeps your information safe so you can focus on what matters most, and that's growing your business. Speaking of growing your business, with Rate and Lane IQ, you get real-time pricing and route recommendations, helping you optimize costs and improve operational efficiencies, which ultimately helps you make smarter decisions. If you are like me and have recurring shipments from non-EDI customers, they have intuitive cloning features that let you easily replicate previous shipments, saving both shipper and carrier rates with just a few taps. If you are ready to learn more, visit www.revanova.com to request a demo. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agent success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys. I'm going to bring him up in a couple of minutes. We're going to be talking about safety today from all walks of the industry, and it's going to be a really good conversation about a book he had just recently released and had the pleasure of sending over to me prior to the show. But before we jump in, you guys, you know what we got to do. It is This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT. It's our 3 times a week lane analysis, and today is a drive-in, and it is Louisville, Kentucky, going down to Dallas, Texas. Now, every time I analyze a lane that comes across my desk, which I do literally all day long because I broker freight, I look at the miles. Miles to me is one of the more important parameter data points on a lane out there, because days of the week matter when you're shipping this out, and there is a direct correlation to a higher price point. So, you know, if this has to move Thursday to Monday, Friday to Monday, it's going to be more expensive than Monday to Wednesday, because again, the carrier has to hold this freight a little bit longer than they normally would out there. Again, as my dad always said, because he was a driver, if our wheels ain't turning, we ain't earning. And the longer they got to hold on to this freight, it will generally drive a higher price point. Now, if you have a contracted rate with your customer on this specific lane, you got to wear it on some of those days, right? But if it's, you know, a spot market truck in hand style thing, you can explain that out there to your customer. I personally like to identify that happy medium, and that's I give them the exact same price. Doesn't matter what day of the week that it's shipping out there. I explain to them why you can see a higher price point or limited capacity on certain days. But again, I try and filter through that, where it's like on those days of the week, if it's like a no, it has to move Friday to Monday, it is what it is. We got to take a little bit and service the account out there. But from a seasonality perspective, and again, this lane goes against the contrary out there, is it's trending down. You see out there about how volatile a lot of the rates are and everything else across the board, but this one has been stable, right? Like, and again, I use that $200 rate variance that I always talk about for my stability standpoint, right? So it's like, if it's between 23 and 2,500 bucks, it's about as stable as you're going to get out there. Therefore, you should be able to properly sell that into your customer to let them know that it's not. And because again, most people sell on volatility, you guys. They have a fear-based sales tactic. I personally don't like it. But again, I'm just here to tell you guys how I do this. From a seasonality standpoint, it looks like kind of like a lot of lanes out there, there's that lull between the 4th of July and Labor Day. You saw this at this point last year where it dipped down in August. It trended up a little bit in September. And then it looks like it's peaked around October. So I would expect that to happen again this year, albeit just at a higher price point. That's the only difference that you're seeing out there right now. Again, you could always point out to some anomalies like, oh, we had tight capacity this time and that time. There's always a factor. But again, it's your literal job as a broker to insulate your customer from any drop in capacity, any pricing volatility out there. Again, I never tell you guys what to quote because I want you to make money. But at the end of the day, if you commit to this freight, you should be out there working to find the right carriers for this lane. One thing that we personally do inside of our operation is we have it broken down to the day of the week, what carrier is best fit for the lane for my customers. So it's like, if this lane was to show up on a Tuesday, I got 3 carriers we reach out to. If this lane was to pop up on a Friday to Monday, I got a couple of carriers we're going to reach out to as our priority providers based on the days of the week that they're out there in the market. But this lane, it's stable. It's actually dropping down. It looks like from a stability standpoint, it's going to remain there. And there might be a little bit of a peak out there in October. But that is This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT, you guys. And again, if you want in on this, email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com, and we will break it down. But let's jump into the topic of conversation today, and this is safety. Safety is no longer just a fleet conversation for the trucking companies out there, you guys. Literally every aspect of this industry is being affected by safety and your processes and everything. So I would like to welcome repeat guest on the show, Mr. Brian Fielkow. He is the author of Making Safety Happen out there. So Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's great to see you again.
No, I know it's been a while. You're
Yes.
reverse snowbirding. You're doing what I intend to do. Also being from Wisconsin, in a couple of years here, I'm planning on getting a home in Wisconsin to get out of the Arizona summers as well. So I love it.
Yeah, Houston's home, and then it's good to get up here for a couple months and avoid some of those triple digits.
Yeah, I hear you there. So, Brian, you gotta, writing this book, you have such a unique perspective in the fact that like you own trucks, you've lived this life for a very long time. So you have a very unique experience out there. But like kind of before we get into the topic of the book, like what was the main driving force behind writing it?
I really wanted to get my thoughts on paper so other people could benefit from it. The things I've learned the hard way, maybe some insights I've got, because as you said, look, I don't come to the table as a trained safety professional with that background. I came to the table originally when I bought Jetco, which I owned from 2006 to 19, and then was with Jetco till about 23. I came from the table first with safety is something you have to do, right? A compliance function. You check the boxes. But I learned over the years that safety creates a core competitive advantage. You wind up attracting the best customers. You wind up attracting a different kind of employee or different kind of contractor. So all the way around, I came to view safety as something that had to be led by the company's executives, and that if you did it right, there was a profound return on investment. So it's the right thing to do. We do it because we have to stay in business, but the bottom line impact is incredible. And it's more true than ever in the post-Montgomery world too, Chris.
No, I agree with that, because it's like I look at with where things are, and we were talking prior to starting the show. I think it's only a matter of time before, from like a litigation perspective, shippers are going to start getting pulled into this. It's going to be, how did you allow this truck that wasn't operating safely on your freight? How is that going to look? And it's like, and then because it's seemingly, and again, you've been through multiple freight markets out there, Brian, that when there's ample capacity, everybody's pushing back. We need a cheaper price. We need a cheaper price, all of that stuff. How do you help? Like, how do you think now in this post-Montgomery world that corporate priorities are going to shift away from this, where it's going to be, what is your safety? What does this look like? Like, how do you ensure that you are not skimping on this right now?
I guess the part of me that was in trucking and logistics long enough will say that you're going to always feel that supply and demand peak, right? So when demand is through the roof, we have a driver shortage, right? And then when demand craters, price becomes kind of that last nickel. And look, I don't think anything's going to change that supply and demand perspective, but I do think it's going to be muted. I mean, even way before Montgomery, most of our customers, our clients were repeat business, right? It wasn't spot. Now the prices would go up and down with the market, but rarely did it get to the point of where it was bare bottom, because we had a longer term view, and so did our customers, because our customers knew the market was going to come up again, and they wanted to make sure they had the capacity. Because I'll tell you something, in those boom markets, in those up markets, we remember who was there for us in the down market. Well, our memories are long. And, I think now in the post-Montgomery world, I think it's going to be more muted, because if you're a shipper and you want to manage your risk, you can't go for the lowest price if you haven't vetted your carriers. There's nothing in Montgomery that said this decision applies only to freight brokers. I mean, Montgomery applies generally. That kind of, I'm the travel agent defense is gone. It doesn't matter what you do, that defense is gone. So whether you're a shipper or broker, wherever you are in the supply chain, this applies to you, and you need to vet. Now, once you've got your pool of vetted carriers and you've established your vetting criteria, then you're going to be looking at price, but only from a pre-qualified pool. I think that's got to be the difference. It can't be the guy that comes in last minute with the cheapest rate that you haven't vetted, because you are a partner now to that crash if they have one.
No, I agree. I can't put an exact timeline on this, Brian, but my gut is telling me that there will be a gold rush in trucking that has never been experienced for the carriers that are out there, and the providers, the brokers as well, who are airtight from their compliance, safety, their business, the ones who are doing it the right way. It's only a matter of time. And again, I wish I could say it's going to be within a certain time frame, but it's like, I think that once that happens, there is going to be a resurgence of this industry, of the right providers, which I think is what everybody wants, right? Like, all these companies out there where they take safety as a line item, to where it's like, oh, hey, we skimp on it during certain markets, but we pay attention to it during others. I think it's going to be very tough to operate, because those businesses out there that do not skimp on this stuff are they're just going to pass all of the requirements with flying colors to get business from anybody.
That's why I think it's such a good time to be in trucking, because it's if you do it right. And look, if you did things a certain way in the past, okay, fine. This is the time to kind of look in the mirror and say, how do we want to operate in the future? How can we become best in class? Because for those that make that commitment, and really it's not that expensive of a commitment, the return on investment is going to be profound. So wherever you've been is fine, right? In other words, I know lots of companies that used to run 2 sets of logbooks in the old days, right? Yeah. And that's how they did business, but that's water under the bridge. It's a new world. And I think that Montgomery has only magnified the importance of that. Now, what I'll say is, way before Montgomery, there are plenty of shippers that were already doing this. that were already rigorously vetting carriers. Your CSA scores, your insurance losses, your culture. I mean, we had a lot of people coming in, and our approach always was throw the door open, come on in, check it out, and we're proud of what we've got. I think that's only going to grow. So to me, it's not like Montgomery is going to create an entire industry that wasn't doing it right. There were lots of people that were really focusing on this for decades, but that's going to become more and more people are going to join that course as they understand the implications of not doing that.
How do you create a culture that encourages drivers to report kind of everything without a fear of retaliation? Because it's like, you bring up a lot of good points there. I think that we're at a great time in the fact of like, if you were maybe turning in a blind eye to things, thank you to the bureaucratic lag time that will inevitably come from DC about a lot of this stuff. You got some time to right the ship. So how do you create that culture that removes fear of retaliation from the frontline drivers who maybe see some things, report some things, or have maybe not been doing that because they saw their buddy get fired for bringing that up?
Yeah, and therein lies the first mistake would be firing somebody for reporting a hazard. I mean, that's the last thing you want to do. It starts with leadership. Leadership has to set a tone. It's called psychological safety. And what psychological safety means, that it lets us understand we're in a business where we know that we're assuming some level of risk. I would joke with our team that, well, we could be the safest trucking company in the world if we parked all of our trucks, but we'd also be out of business. So, psychological safety is about making it okay to report hazards, making it okay to call a timeout if something looks unsafe, making it okay to speak up, to ask questions, and never, ever a fear of retaliation. So let's say somebody calls that timeout, they stop work, and it turns out they were wrong. There was no safety issue. You still thank them. You explain kind of what you see, you listen to what they saw. But the minute you suspend somebody or fire them or even ridicule them, like, how could you ask such a dumb question? That's it. The spigot's off. Word travels fast. So it's a function. People adjust their behavior to the environment you as the leader create. They prioritize what you prioritize. You look the other way on stuff, they will too. So it starts with you, and you've got to make it okay, because look, who's going to see that unsafe situation first? An executive sitting in his or her office, or somebody out there doing the work. You've got to break down those silos that so often separate our frontline employees from the office, and make those conversations not just optional, but expected.
What are a couple of leading indicators you recommend tracking before? Because it's like, I look at, vehicles, and, I'm going through this at my house right now. Preventative maintenance would have put a couple more dollars back in my pocket if I would have paid attention back at the time, but I didn't want to make that investment at that time, which led to a bigger issue. What are a couple of leading indicators out there that you recommend people start tracking to possibly catch this before it turns into an actual incident?
Yeah, Chris, a lot of times what we track are lagging indicators, right? So we track the crashes that happen. We track the injuries that happen. And what we're really doing is measuring pain. I think there's a better way to do it. So a leading indicator are predictive things. So for example, making sure that if training is required for a certain group of people, everybody participates. Near miss reporting, job hazard reporting. These are examples of how we get in front, how we get the intelligence from our subject matter experts, in other words, our teams, to learn about where there are those opportunities for improvement, where are those hazards that have to be addressed. A close call, right, where something almost happened, you got to treat it as if it did happen and learn from it, because it was just a matter of luck that nothing bad happened. But in order to do that, a lot of those things aren't as obvious, right? If there's a crash, you can measure that. But if there's a hazard recognition, it's harder to measure unless people speak up, which goes back to the earlier question, is you've got to have a culture where people will speak up so you can capture those leading indicators, address them, and then prevent the incident from happening.
Because it's like I look at it where, and again, this is another thing you and I were talking about before the show is systems development for me has been like the hardest thing in business. And it has everything to do like, because ideas are great when you're in a controlled environment and the sun's out. But after you've been applying that process for a long time or that system for a long time, that's when the errors start to identify themselves. How can you spot that? Like what are some of those things that you've experienced early on when it comes to like building out a safety process for trucks, like specifically to what we were just talking about, almost about like, ringing the alarm essentially before it becomes an actual incident?
You got to be sure that your processes are living and breathing. And what I mean by that is, I've seen these big, thick 600-page process manuals. Well, I think you and I probably know that I could give them to somebody, but they're probably not going to read them. I mean, I'm not going to read them half the time. So to me, the thing you got to ask is the process reasonably understandable by the intended audience? So if most of my audience primary language is Spanish and my processes are only in English, I'm already a step behind. If my process manual is written at a high school or collegiate level and my audience reads at a 7th or 8th grade level, I don't have process. I've got words on paper. Mm-hmm. So the key to me is actually we don't necessarily need more process. We're already killing enough trees with the thick handbooks, assuming that they're still printed, which is debatable. But what we've got to focus on is actionable, understandable process. So I'm a big fan of, first of all, reading the process and making sure that it is understandable. We had our drivers do that for us, and they helped us develop a manual that we called the Jetco Way, which was written by our team for our team. It wasn't off the shelf. Mm-hmm. The other thing that helps tremendously is moving away from the text-heavy processes toward checklists, right? Just like you do a DVIR, well, there's a lot of other processes in your business that you can just simplify with checklists. No different than the way a pilot starts their flight and ends their flight. I mean, how would you feel if a pilot said, hey, folks, we're running behind a little bit, so I decided to skip the checklist today? I think I'd get off the plane. Yeah, so the point is, you've got to figure out how to make your process relatively simple, straightforward, and actionable. And there's no better way to do that than simple checklists that major on the important operational and safety issues. So it's about taking what I find to be often process that's just too complex and making it accessible and easy for the people that have to follow it. It's easy to sit in our office and say, why didn't you follow that process? It's a lot harder when you're actually trying to live it in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good segue into my next question is like, how do you break down corporate silos between ops and safety? Because it's like, I look at it where, as a broker, customers will come to me and be like, hey, I got this thing. I need to ship this day and it's got to deliver by this day. I'm like, unless we strap it on a rocket fuel, it's not getting there, or we ship it air freight and air freight's $200,000. Like this should have shipped out. So it's like, how do you break those silos down though? Because, again, profits, as as a business owner and everything, Brian, it's kind of a big deal in business, but it's like, how do you separate that stuff?
Profits are a big deal, but I don't want them to be fleeting. I mean, if I'm winging it, okay, I may make money today and tomorrow, and then give it all back the next day, right? So the point is, you want sustainable, stable profits, which happen in an environment where operations and safety are in sync. Otherwise, you'll have enough incidents, crashes, cargo claims. It'll eat up your profits over time. So I think the idea, and this is something that people have to talk to their teams about. If I go into any company and ask who's responsible for safety here, I can almost guarantee you half of them will say the safety department, the safety director. The other half will say I am, or we all are. And there's only one right answer, and that's I am and we all are, right? Your safety team, your safety department, they can teach, train, coach, mentor. That's their job. But who's responsible for making safety happen, the execution of safety? Operations, they're the ones whose hands are on the levers, the wheels. They're the ones dispatching, making the decisions. So the way you break the silos down, I'll tell this story that, every Monday morning I would have a safety meeting, and I'd hear my safety managers complain about the operations team not regarding the rules or playing cat and mouse, the usual stuff.
Mhm.
Tuesday, I'd have my operations meeting, and I would hear the safety guys just don't get it. I mean, they don't understand how this business runs. And I only learned one thing from that, which was my life was way too short. I'm not going to waste my time with that. So I broke it down, and I had a safety operations meeting, just one, with the safety and operations teams in the same room. That changed the dynamic. You create silos by who you invite to the table. So, but when we got away from the siloed safety meeting and the siloed operations meeting, that changed the game because we were one team. How do you incentivize your team? I mean, if you incentivize your team only on production, only on, on-time delivery, then don't be surprised when we cut a lot of corners to get there. What you prioritize, what you incentivize, what you reward, what you recognize is how people will adjust their behavior. So that too creates a silo. And then, another significant silo obviously exists between the office and our frontline employees. We've got to figure out how to bring our front lines in with us. And if we can tear those silos down, what we're really doing is creating one team that is aligned around safe and productive. Nobody ever said it was either or. Nobody ever said, what do you want to be, boss, safe or productive? It's both. I think we can achieve both. And when you do that, the profits usually do follow.
I look at it now and we were kind of touching on this earlier, but I look at it is because as somebody who, actually moves freight still to this day and solicits customers, solicits business. And, I was talking with a prospect last week, and I'm now being asked, how are you vetting your providers? What does this look like? Is this a continuous thing? Is it every single load? What does that process look like? I think that now it's like, seeing this and kind of what we were talking about post-Montgomery, there was just a couple of more very large logos that were brought back into litigation this morning. I didn't read the article yet, so I'm not going to talk about it, but everybody knows who they are in the industry. How do you advise people now that safety, I think, and processes, it's going to be a differentiator out there? How do you use that as an active sales tool?
You mean if you're a trucker?
Yeah, whether you're a trucker, broker, how do you use that as an active sales tool to develop business in today's environment?
Well, I think a good vendor always empathizes with their customer. What are your pain points? What are your goals? How can I help you achieve them? And so generally, the pain point and the goal would be to get the freight from point A to point B on time and in one piece. But what Montgomery has done is it's highlighted what's already there, right? It's already been there that you've got exposure for negligently hiring carriers, for not vetting, but Montgomery's put it under a microscope for the world to see. So one of the pain points is that by working with me, I'm going to help you sleep at night. I'm going to take that worry away. And by the way, transparently, here's my data beyond my CSA scores, which you can generally get publicly. Here's our process manual. Here's what leadership does. Here's what we do to engage employees. Here's our timeout policy. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do. And look, when I grew Jetco over the years, this was common for us. This is how we built the business. Is we built it by incorporating safety into our sales and marketing. Right. At first, customers, eyes would glaze over and they'd say, "Get to the part about the price," and that still happens, right? But over time, you start to learn the customers to whom it's important, and you wind up competing against a much smaller group of high-quality carriers, and that's where you want to put yourself. But the best thing I would do if I was still in the business is I would be developing my talking points and taking them to the shippers, to the brokers, to the intermediaries I worked with, so that they could sleep at night working with me. And I would make their job of vetting as easy as possible.
Yeah. I look at a lot of how the industry has evolved over the years. And, what is important, what was important at one point is like not even a topic of conversation anymore. But I look at it from a safety perspective. It's only going to stay at the forefront because I unfortunately, Brian, I think we're just at the tipping point of a lot more lawsuits that are going to start coming down. Nuclear verdicts have been a problem for a while now, but I think like some of these recent things is only going to open up. Like lawyers are, they see the blood in the water right now. And I think that we're just going to start to see this, but I also look at it no matter what, like this is a massive opportunity for the carriers and the providers out there that are doing it the right way to prove themselves, and you're going to stand out in the crowd because what you brought up there, Brian, is so true about like, you want to attract the right business out there that is a priority for them because you're breathing rare air at that point. You're not in that bottom feeder mentality, which everybody who's ever been in business of any kind understands, where you're fighting 100 people for a penny at that point, where there is a classification of customer out there where, again, they care about certain things. And if you align with that, like your days are a lot, like it's always stressful, but like, you're judged on your performance and the quality of your company as opposed to a line item on a balance sheet.
Exactly, because you're still competing and price still matters, but you're competing against people that hold themselves to the same high standard you do. I mean, if we're just going on price, there's no way I could have competed against somebody that didn't take care of their equipment, that, didn't have good insurance, all that. That wasn't my competition. And I always refused to compete against those carriers price-wise. But if they were taking care of their vehicles or they were signing on owner-operators with good vehicles, if the insurance was apples to apples, if the operating apples to apples, well, then I was proud to compete against them. And then at that point, price does matter, but it's got to be vetted because, otherwise what are you really doing? What are you really competing for? Because none of us needs the practice.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Brian, thank you so much for your time. This was great. And, again, this is on, I was looking around, it's on Amazon. Where do you want people to buy this book from that benefits you more?
Well, actually anywhere. So Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Noble, it's available in 3 formats. So the hardcover that you were holding up, yep. It's available in ebook and Kindle format. And then this year, this book, I decided to do an audio format. So it's available in audio format. And I wrote the book the way I read, which is you can read it chapter to chapter if you want, but if there's a chapter or a section that addresses your pain point, you can just read that. It's meant to meet you where you're at.
No, I love it. Brian, thank you so much for your time. If you guys can't find this book out there, hit me up. I will gladly send you guys some links so you can purchase this. Again, you guys, safety is going to be a massive selling point here. If it hasn't already become that in your conversations with your customers, I think it's going to be at the forefront in these coming months. But as always, you guys, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. If you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to say it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane move